I'm delighted to be with Richard Thorpe this afternoon, and depending when you're listening to this, Richard, massive thanks for joining us. You're joining us for the June property brunch. In fact, you've been with us for about 14 months now. Lockdown seems to be finally coming to an end. I hope. I say that because there are some things taking place locally. Um, and of course, there's challenges also with COVID in all sectors. So our discussion this afternoon is going to be focused on overcoming obstacles. I know you've got a slightly different phraseology. Do you want to explain the presentation for the early period of June? It's hard for me to say June.
Yeah, it must be. It's gosh, this year's going quickly, isn't it, Brendan? Look, delighted to be involved with you once again. I'm essentially the Brendan Quinn in-house performance coach. It feels sometimes. So my presentation is going to be on overcoming obstacles, the neuroscience of business breakthroughs. So I'm going to look at sort of the thinking styles and the behaviours, but particularly the neuroscience of when we come up against those sort of brick walls in business that we struggle to break through, perhaps those glass ceilings that we can struggle to bust our way out of. We're going to look a little bit at the neuroscience behind that. What is it that that top 1% do regularly? How do they think? What has been the nature of their lives to prepare themselves, to condition themselves to be able to break through perceived or even very real limits. So yeah, really looking forward to getting stuck into that with you at the next property brunch.
So Richard, do you think, I'm not sure how you explain this or how I would explain it, but do you think some people may be thinking, look, COVID is disappearing, or certainly things are opening up. Therefore, in some respects, there's less challenges, but we've all got challenges in business in one respect or another. However, people can't really use COVID as an excuse anymore. Do you think that's a little bit too strong?
Well, I suppose I'd answer that this way. We did a presentation a few months ago, I think now, on resilience. I mean, how do you build resilience? You've got to go through hardship. So, I mean, I look in one of my primary business activities is running a semi-professional rugby club. And gosh, haven't we had our challenges as a squad over the course of this season. But of course, you can respond to that in a number of ways, one of which is to look at the positives. We are now conditioned to deal with hardship. If we get it right, which I would hope that we have done, we are going to be better placed to overcome the inevitable obstacles that next season we will face, and the seasons thereafter. I mean, there's quite simply to become more efficient at breaking through any challenge, blockage, obstacle in life. It's to become more resilient. It's to have that toughness to be able to recover quickly from setbacks, and for it to not take as deep a toll on you. So I'd probably answer your question that way.
So you mentioned the keyword recovery, Richard. So look, obviously, for your team, recovery can be many different things. I think you mentioned at the commercial summit in 2020, hydrotherapy, or maybe I'm just making that particular one
Nearly.
up.
Cryotherapy is a recovery technique. Yeah, it reverses the stress response, flooding your vital organs with richly oxygenated blood, which triggers your parasympathetic response, which is your body's method of recovery. Cryotherapy, a fantastic recovery tool. Now, whilst the physiology side of things is very important, and I'll certainly touch on that, as I often do in my presentations, my focus is going to be on the neuroscience, the neurological pathways that you have, your thinking styles. How do you perceive these blockages or barriers to your business's potential? And it's very similar overcoming an obstacle on the sports field. It's the same tools. Your brain doesn't know the difference, right? I mean, that's
So
what.
you talked about two different aspects there, the
Mm,
physiology and also the neuroscience.
yeah,
So look, I know you want to focus on the neuroscience, and we will do that on the 8th of June.
yeah.
In terms of physiology, yeah, gyms are open and so forth.
Mm,
But in terms of your players and so forth,
mm,
how are they preparing to deal with obstacles in terms of physiology
mm,
right now? Is that possible?
mm.
And is it possible that people who are investors or developers and other property professionals can do something similar as well?
Yeah. Well, of course, from a physiological perspective, there is a cost to your body's stress response. If you're stressed by anything, you're going to be taxing your body. You're going to be tired from it. This is where words like recovery come in and why they are so important. If you're a high performer in any field, you need to be able to recover adequately. But here's the thing about sports.
Sorry, Richard, to cut in there.
Yeah.
What do you class as? I know it's fairly simple, but do you class a high performer as someone who's in the top 5%, maybe 10% in their field? Is that as simple as it is?
I suppose my definition is a good question. My definition of a high performer, because you could be a high performing stay at home mother, in my view. Absolutely, you could do. Kate, my partner, with our 10-week-old baby right now, I would classify as a high performer with what she's doing. I would see a high performer as someone who can sustain their performance in whatever their chosen field is over the long term. In order to do that, you need to have very good habits. You need to sleep well. You need to exercise. You need to have a nutritious diet. You need to have other behaviors in your life that promote well-being, as well as promote your performance instinct, your fight or flight. You need to have a little bit of stress in your life to be a high performer for obvious reasons. So a high performer to me is someone that balances their life very well, and they are able to perform at whatever it is that they are doing at their highest level. You don't need to be in the top 1% of the planet to qualify for that, in my view.
Okay. Um, Look, so physiology, also in terms of the neuroscience as well, Richard, do you want to just
Mm,
expand on that? And of course, we'll go into more detail on the
mm.
8th of June.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, look, of course, you are what you think. Not many people agree with me straight away when I say that, but ask the psychiatrists and the neurologists, and they would probably agree with me. Well, I borrowed it from them.
I think it's from James Allen, if I remember rightly. I
Well,
might.
I'm sure he's probably plagiarized it from someone before him as well.
Oh
But
no,
yeah,
no, no.
James
James
Allen
Allen.
certainly.
Yeah, going back to the 1800s.
Yeah, for sure, right? The quality of your thoughts can dictate the outcome of your life. If you have obstacles and you choose to look at the challenges and you choose to focus on how you can't achieve them, it's very likely that you won't break through. I mean, I had a client earlier on today who's very nervous about making sales calls, and he's in a sales business. So we looked at the concept of priming. So that was prior to getting onto his sales call, to list the perceived outcomes if it were to go the best it possibly could. What would it look like? You're literally priming your neurons you're basically priming them for success, because we're opening up those neurological pathways in your brain that are going to lead to the positive behavioral outcomes as well. So obviously we'll get into depth in this in the presentation, but I mean, perhaps just to leave everyone with, be conscious of your thoughts, because you are what you think.
I was going to ask you one final comment. So do you think some teams, when they're playing at international level, like New Zealand,
Mm,
the obstacle is New Zealand, or I
mm,
say the obstacle is New Zealand.
mhm.
Do you think some of those international teams who are not so significant yet are almost beaten before they get onto the field?
Mm. I mean, we see it all the time. We only need to look at a few World Cups ago when Japan beat South Africa, clearly the underdogs, but they approached that game with a very different mindset. I mean, if we were to interview that Japan squad in the moments before they stepped out onto the field, I don't think you'd find many that thought that they were going to lose that day. Whatever it was in their minds, they were convinced that they had what it takes. They believed it. And here's the beauty of belief. If you truly believe something, it's very likely that your behaviors and your actions will put you in the best position possible to actually go and achieve it. Ties back into what we were saying around priming. If you're able to prime yourself, your thoughts for success in whatever it is that you're doing, it is more likely that you will be successful in that chosen endeavor. I mean, it's just the beauty of life hacking your brain, right?
Hacking, when you talk about New Zealand and or South Africa, in fact, Japan, South Africa, amazing triumph some years back. It wasn't that many years back. Richard, massive thanks for joining us on the video today, but massive thanks also joining us in a couple of weeks' time, or just under that 13 days. So look, I look forward to seeing you there online. And many people asking, when am I going to do live events? In fact, Richard was at my last live event, which was back in March, and I'm sure you'll be at one of my live events soon as well. So
I hope so.
Fingers crossed.
Brilliant. Thanks, Brendan.